All right, part two of the performance pattern cycling benefits. The biggest thing is by doing the cycling, where you just pick a number of exercises that you feel is important for your athletes, and then you, in this performance cycle, basically you cycle through all of them at the first repetition or the first set, and then you go back to the top and do it, versus going 3 sets of 6 and then 3 sets of 6 for another exercises. Okay, the biggest thing, and this is done for bodybuilding, and it's most likely it is optimal for bodybuilding, as far as I'm concerned. It is optimal for powerlifting. These are things that probably have to be done to get the most benefits, whether it's hypertrophy or whether it's getting strong in a particular lift. These are all correct for those sports, but not for athletics. I found, again, and you saw in the previous video in 2, where an athlete will one of the drills I chose, doing the 3 sets of 6, cause this athlete to jump up and down more when he moved than if I would cycle him through. You can see the same drill didn't cause that jumping to go up and down, and this was without coaching. And again, this is why I don't coach people when I run, unless they're a very specific running athlete. If we have time, I feel running or any type of certain drills gives me an indicator of what's going on when we perform an exercise. So yes, you can do an exercise, watch an athlete run, and see how it changes that. So one of the things in the structure of your workout with performance pattern cycling is I'll call what I did with my programs performance cycling, where again I'm using the same program as you just saw. Maybe it's back squat, you do a hurdle hop, then you do a glute ham, and we go through this in cycle, and we do this like 3 sets, maybe 4 sets. And then what I'll do at the end is I'll add more assistant cycling, I would call, or prehab cycling, where we do some of the exercises that I'd normally do maybe throughout here, but I just save them and wait, and do this at the end. And maybe this is just more weaknesses that your athlete has. Maybe they need more back work, so I would throw pull-ups in here, or just anything else that they need. You can split this into 2 things at the end, but you don't want too much to interfere with the performance cycling. Now, I'm not saying that let's say you do a pretty hard back squat and then a glute ham, and you want to and then you do the external bands, and maybe you want to throw one more prehab exercises from. I think that's completely fine. Okay, basically you get through your performance cycling. When I say that, is you're trying to minimize fatigue and not get too many of these exercises from over here, or your prehab exercises thrown in. I would put a few just to help with rest periods and so forth, but then ultimately you can do a couple of these cycles, or you can even do some other methods, whether it's at the end, whether you're planning on to maybe build some conditioning with a certain muscle group that you've identified. That's when you would not use performance cycling. When I say that, let's say they need some extra conditioning on their hamstrings, get fatigued, so maybe then this is when you would do some more hamstring, or maybe honestly I would like an isometric hamstring at that particular time. Is very beneficial. So again, this is the structure workout. Basically I rebuild all my programs to have their performance cycle, and then once they cycle through that, then they'll do the assistance cycling, where they cycle through. And do you have to do all of them and then start at the top? No, you don't. It's just how I do it with this performance cycling pattern. Now, performance pattern cycling benefits, obviously you can click on this link. I believe this PowerPoint will be at the bottom of the YouTube video. Click on the performance cycling, where all my 13 training zones can be matched up here. Really quick, I want to talk about the loading zones 1 through 9, speed and power. I would always do performance pattern cycling in zones 1 through 9 if you are using those charts that I created, the different loading zones and models. In zones 10 through 13, which are basically above 80% all the way up to 120% supermaximal loading, I would probably not do performance pattern cycling as much. I will do it, but usually when I'm trying to get strong, I got a very specific lift. I would probably only use it when we do specific things in regards to weaknesses, okay? Or if I know that this lift is really an excellent lift, I'm going to stick with it, and I'm not going to do performance cycling when we do heavy loads in 10 through 13. I will only do it in loading zones 1 through 9, most likely. It's just something that I think, because I'm trying to get as strong as possible, I will stay away from doing the performance pattern cycling. So, and then the last little bit on part 3, which will be on my Facebook group, where to start your performance pattern cycling, whether you have a quad dominant or a QL dominant or a hamstring dominant athletes. Rest per exercise is more optimal, obviously. I will talk about positive effects of transfer of an athlete's movements, create less fatigue. I kind of mentioned that before. And it actually is a better flow throughout the weight room with my teams in large groups. So I'm going to talk about this in part 3.